Hey everybody, Michelle with Michelle's Real Living here. Thanks for watching my videos, and it's time to talk about my temperature quilt again. So in my last video, which I did last week, I talked about the back and getting started on the embroidery and so I wanted to get that finished. And so now I'm ready to make my quilt sandwich and start quilting. So I thought I'd show you my embroideries that I did on here. So I did a little bit more than I knew I was going to do when I made my last video. So anyway, so I decided to mark my monthly blocks, and so that's January, and I put 2023 here. So the 2023 would be on the front of the quilt somewhere. It's going to be on the back also, but I just labeled it right here at the beginning. And yeah, so now I will show you pictures of all of the embroidery I did. Okay, so those were all the little squares that I decided the embroidery, and I think I've decided that I'm going to do some embroidery on with the color chart on the back as well. Do hand embroidery. We'll see. Yeah, so what I decided to do on these blocks, I did AVG for average high 70 degrees, and there's the average for the whole year 62, and average low is 53. And I put a little circle with a little F for Fahrenheit because I'm in Fahrenheit here. And you might have noticed there was a couple of other things that I did. Here is the highest temperature we had at 99 Fahrenheit, so I put high of 99 on that, so that was that square right there. And then I also did the low, which was back in February. I know it's along the edge too somewhere. Yep, there it is right there. So low 19 Fahrenheit. So I decided to mark those as well. The other thing I've done, and I always like to do that right before I make my quilt sandwich, is iron it. So hopefully I haven't wrinkled it up a little bit in here. It's not a big deal. But that's why I got the ironing board out here. Yeah, so I always iron my quilt just before, like my final iron, I'll do just before I make my quilt sandwich. That way I know that it's, hasn't been sitting around and got folds in it and that kind of stuff. And I also ironed the back piece, which I already have laid out on the floor, so we'll go look at that. All right, so you can see I have the back laid out all here, and normally I wouldn't have this much space to lay it out all at one time like this. Except my man has decided to rearrange his living room and put a fish tank in, so I was like, hey, perfect opportunity that I can use this. Otherwise, I have done it on my bed and like took all the sheets off and everything, and then laid out, like start at the top corner and like be very careful laying it out and pinning it and everything else. And I take it, rent the community room at the library, or if you got a church or just a place like that that you can, because if you can lay the whole darn thing out at one time, that's obviously the best. So okay, so I know that's going to be the top up there, and there's a vent up there underneath the couch, so it keeps blowing that edge up, so I sat those things on it to hold it down. But anyway, so I have that, and then I've got my quilt batting cut, which should be plenty big enough, so I've got to get that laid down, and then we'll lay the top on there. Okay, so I have some quilt batting. It's 108 inches wide, and so I'm gonna lay it out that direction. I'm pretty sure I might have to change it, but then because that's the edge I cut. I bought a giant roll. I don't know, it's got like 30 yards on it or something like that, whatever. And so it come folded in half, and then I just cut off a long piece that I wanted. And so I know this is the folded edge here, so I'm going to start up here at the top and lay it down, and then if I have to adjust it, I will, just to get it in the middle. Probably would have been easier if I marked the middle of the piece of fabric, but that's okay. So it actually, let me show you the bottom. I can't believe I did it, but I pretty much cut it the exact same height as my fabric came out, because you know, I sewed all those pieces of fabric together. But my fabric is a little bit wider over here because I did cut it extra big, but I know that my quilt isn't 108 wide, so we should be good. Okay, and I actually got a little fabric extra on that side too, so I'll call that good. And then I have to lay the top down. All right, so now it's time to lay the top on, and you can see I got half of it laid out here. So what I did is I went ahead and folded the quilt in half, knowing where my top left corner was, because that's, you know, so I keep myself oriented, that's the top left corner. I folded it in half this way, folded it in half that way, so I had 1/4 of it. And I had this center line in the quilt batting where it had been folded in half and then rolled up on the roll. So that gave me a line right there so I can follow that. And I roughly found the middle, which was out there. and then I just laid it down. And so however you do it, I mean, most of the time I don't measure. I just put it down if I need to move it, you know, because I add 5 inches or so on both sides, roughly around that, whatever, 3-5 inches. That way it has some room, because it's going to shift on you as you quilt. Okay, so I did that. So now I need to open this up and make sure that I am centered. Okay, I should be centered on the quilt batting, definitely, because I have that. And then the quilt batting is centered on the back. So if I can get the camera to set up here. Sit still and we'll look at this. Okay, there we go. So all I need to do is unfold this like this and lay it down here. Okay, and perfect. Now flatten it out, make sure it's flat as I can get it, and no big wrinklies in it. And actually I can see a little bit of a buckle in the middle, so I need to take care of that, and a little bit over here. And then, let's see, I got a little bit right there. Great. Now, I'm happy with that. So now I got a bowl of safety pins. And I'm going to start pinning. How many pins to use? A lot. A lot. That's what I can say. And there's nothing special about these pins. They do make some that are have a bend in them. Whatever. You just want to make sure you're not pinning your carpet. Invariably, I always have one that's stuck to the carpet when I do this. How far apart do you put them? I don't know. Not a lot, you know. Are we still in frame here? We are. Okay. You know, this might be a little closer than I normally do, like there, but that's the span of my hand right there. So, yeah, I just got to go through here and get all these pins put in here. And then I could get the quilt hoop on. So let's get this pinned up. Okay, just have this little corner left to do here, and something I do make sure I do is, like, at least, you know, every foot or so, I make sure I have a pin along the edge, just to really help it from flopping around. And yeah, I probably started with maybe a little more than 100 pins here, and looks like I probably used 100 pins. I got a few left in the bowl. I like the bigger ones better than the smaller ones, but work the work. And I always like to put one in the corner. And I have been smoothing it as I go, and that's why it's good to start in the middle or start at one edge, and you know, and work your way out. That way you can do some of the smoothing. I mean, it'll happen. And I quilt from the middle out, of course. So, get this done, and then I'll put the quilt hoop in. I'll show you that. I think you can have too few pins. I don't think you can have too many pins, really. I mean, I don't think it hurts to have more pins in than you need, right? And of course I take them out as I go along quilting. Okay, so that's the quilt sandwich. I know you can't really see the pins now, but I got that part done, and that's some pins I got left out of that. So yeah, let me get this set back up and then I'll put the quilt hoop in. Alright, so I'm going to use this oval quilt hoop right here, and yeah, it just has a little wing nut and a bolt through there, so you can open it up. So I like to open it up quite a bit because we got to put the layers of fabric in there. And when you put it back together, you want to be sure that this part and that part are lined up. So the way I'm going to quilt this, I'm just going to do straight lines. I got nothing fancy going on in this. And I'm just going to go straight through all those little squares. And I'm going to go both directions, that way and that way. So I want to orient this so that I can maximize getting that way. I'm going to be quilting both directions at the same time. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of strings. They'll be going out. And then, but I want to start roughly in the middle, and that way it evenly distributes as it goes out. So this part with the wing nuts goes on the top, and I'm going to call that the middle. I'm going to slide this hoop. See, I can pick this up now. It's not a big deal. If I wanted to put it away for a while, I can. My quilt sandwich is going to hold together just fine with all these pins in it. So I'm just go ahead and get this up here out of the way and slide my bottom hoop under there. And I kind of look out for the pins and not, I don't want to crunch a pin in the quilt hoop. Okay, so just put that, I'm going to unloosen the wing nut a little bit more. Get that down there. Whoops, and I popped it off. Okay. There we go. I got it on there. Okay. So, there it is. And what I want to do is just tug on these sides a little bit and make sure that it is smooth and taut. And I'm going to tighten the wing nut down. And I suppose some people like it tighter when they quilt than other people. And that's just something that everybody does themselves. And it's always a good idea to look on the back and make sure there aren't any wrinkles in your back and that your back is tight. So I do frequently just go ahead and pull on the edges and make sure that the back is up tight also. And when I start quilting, I'll take the pins out of this section only. I mean, it's okay to take them out now. So, all right, time to start quilting, and I'll just talk about what I'm going to be using here to do the quilting. I've got some dual duty hand quilting coats thread. I've got black. I decided to go black. The background is black. The backing is. In my mind, my preference would have been like a hunter green, but what I had on hand didn't have any hunter green. Not sure I can get it. So, so I'm going with black. I got black, and I typically use like these hand quilting needles. This is size 8. I'm good with that. I may end up going to a little bit larger needle just because I don't plan on having teeny stitches on this. I don't need teeny stitches. I've never done teeny stitches. I think when I first started quilting, that was the way my mom and my grandma quilted, with those little stitches. I don't feel like it's important, and so I make my stitches the way I want to make my stitches. And I would tell you, every time I get started quilting, my stitches, the length of them is always uneven. But as I go through, and the more I quilt through the quilt, they get much more even and everything. So I don't stress over it. I really don't. And I like to have a little bit of a thimble underneath to push in case something happens. Like sometimes I land on a like a dense spot where the seams are at or something, and then I have to push the needle straight down, and then I push it back up from the other side. I've got this little silicone thimble. I've never been able to quilt with a thimble. You know, my mom didn't use one. She taped her finger up, and I kind of just did that too because mom did. And in fact, I don't like this straight. I think the last two quilts I quilted, I used this, and I kind of used it off center a little bit. So I've got a length of the thread ready to go, and I think you could see this. So I'm going to start right here. So the way I'm going to quilt this is I'm going to go through across all of them, both directions. My last quilt I quilted was an Irish chain, and I really liked the I did that with it, and I really liked the way it came out, and it quilted really fast too because I'm just doing straight lines. So so I put my needle in and I pulled my knot in so it's tucked in, and I am purposely I am going to make bigger stitches on this because it's what I want to do. And yes, I could draw lines, but I am not feeling it. And I am right-handed, so that affects the way the direction that I quilt. I will quilt towards me, and I will quilt towards the left. If I get stuck in a situation sometimes and I have to quilt backwards, especially if I'm doing flowers or something, yeah, a lot of times I will stick the needle down through, and you know, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes, right? And you get used to doing it. I've never quilted a quilt in a frame, so I don't know what that's like. I've always been able to rotate my quilt around, and I'm just my bottom hand, I'm just putting a little pressure and using my fingernail to guide the needle and just help it out. So but yeah, this is the way I quilt, and I'll just sit and watch TV and listen to an audiobook or something like that, and just let it be. And I do enjoy quilting, piecing as well as doing the hand quilting like this. So yep. So I'm not gonna sit here and quilt all this in front of you, but and record it all. But what I am gonna do is have lots of strings. Every one of these rows, I will fill up this whole quilt frame, quilt hoop area, and then have the threads dangling up here off of the edge. And I'll take the needle out. I don't leave the needles in. I've done that before. If I knew I was moving the quilt hoop right away or something like that. But there's no reason for me to have 20 needles sitting in this. And so I will. I'll just let the threads dangle out to the end, and then when I move the hoop, I'll just, you know, pick up where I left off and rethread the needles and stuff like that. So, if you hear the little splashing or not, that's Turtle. He's over there trying to get my attention. He thinks it's time to eat. It probably is dinner time. So, anyhow, that, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to tell you right now about my quilting. I'll probably make another video. I don't know, we'll see how long. I'm not really sure how long it's going to take me to do this. The Irish chain that I made that whole darn quilt and quilted it in 2 weeks because it was a gift, and I really wanted to get it done. So if I have time, and I'm anticipating, this is my project right now, so I am anticipating getting this done in a short amount of time as I can. Okay, so I've made it to the end of where I'm going to be quilting or doing this row. So there, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that, and I'm going to let it dangle, and then I'll get me another thread, and I will just start right here, and I'm going to do all of these, and then I'm going to work my way across that way. As for I've got August right here, so I haven't decided. I really think what I'm going to do on this, instead of stitching quilting over top of the words and going over this triangle, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to go around the square, and then have those isolated that way, and then I'll have to see on the other blocks that I have. I probably will not quilt over top of any of the words. I'll probably isolate them by putting a square around them. So, but yeah, I'll probably do an update video, maybe just depending on how long I feel like it's gonna take me to quilt this, or I might come back and show you some more quilting along the way. So, but definitely, if I get it all done in a short amount of time, it might just be the next video I'll do binding, and yeah, because we still got to do that too. So, all right, thanks for watching.